Hey everybody, welcome back to the shop. Today we're working on this FJ40 project. The one with that 1UZ engine that we're putting in. And I've got the engine on some mounts right now. And today we're going to continue on building some stainless steel headers. And you can see I got the first pipe in there. And I get a lot of questions about building stainless steel exhausts and mufflers, about how I cut stainless and put it together and everything. And today we're going to go over a few things and see if we can get a little further on these headers today. And this is the passenger side, and you can see from the size of that engine there's no way we could keep those headers inside the frame rails. So we've got them on the outside, and you can see there's the collector. And the only thing we're really worried about here is, I'll turn that tire in for you. We need some tire clearance, which we have. There's going to be bigger tires on the finished vehicle, and we need enough room in there. So we're keeping it tight to the frame, and from here we're going to take off with some 2.5-inch exhaust. We're going to bring it back in the frame, put the muffler right in that area. We'll go over the axle and then scoot out the back there, and we'll do that on both sides. So the first one's kind of a pain to get in, and I've got that one in. I've got the collector where I want it. And one thing I do, I use some of this flexible tubing here. I think you can see that stuff. And you know, you can bend this any way you want it. And it kind of gives you an idea where you're going when you're making headers. It's easy to visualize stuff. And once you get your longest pipe in, you want to keep your longest pipe as short as you can. And then you want to keep all your other tubes there the same length. You want these to be as close as possible to the same length. So it's easy to do with some of this plastic tubing here. So if you guys are starting on a header project or something, you can get this from any industrial house, like Master Supply, anybody like that. It's not real expensive. And once you cut your longest length, you could kind of fool around and on that final tube there. That's got to get pretty creative to get the same length, but it's easier with the tubing. So let me come around here onto the driver's side, and you could see, I don't know if you remember, we put the steering out in the front here, Saginaw box. We've got some Borgerson joints on there, and then this is kind of clamped where it's going to attach to the firewall. And I kind of need to know that because, as you can see here, our first, maybe even the second tube of this header are going to have to come over the steering, and then these back two could come under it. So we need to get that kind of close to where it's going to be, so that we can get the header built right and sneak the tube in there after. So that's roughly what's going on here, and I'm going to show you some a couple little ways that I cut stainless steel and get the all the bends cut and figured out and stuff. It could be kind of a bear cutting stainless, and regular blades on a bandsaw are tough, and cut-off wheels are slow, and I'll just show you a couple different ways of getting this stuff fit. Okay, I'll be right back with you. Okay, there's all our header pieces. This was a you know, build your own header kit. I forget where it came from. There's a bunch of stainless steel exhaust places where you could get mandrel bends like this. You could get some flanges for your engine, and you can get a collector in whatever size you want the rest of the exhaust to be. So the J bend there is That's the most popular bend. You can get a lot of different cuts out of this depending where you cut it, and it's probably about the best bend you could get. And these are super nice mandrel bends here. There's no crushing or kinking or anything like that in these. So these will go together real nice. And but there's a lot of cutting to do. And the way I do it, I use the bandsaw. And what's on there right now is called a friction blade. And this runs at very high speed. And it's specifically designed to cut hard materials. It's not made for real thick stuff, but for tubing, for very hard steel, stainless steel especially, you could cut miles of it, and your blade won't ever go bad. They last a super long time, but you need to be able to get high speed out of them. And on this particular saw, I've got 3-speed transmission on this saw. And let's see here. Oops. Yeah, it's hard to see. But, yeah, we can get about 12,000 feet a minute. And I run this saw at, when I have a friction blade on it, I run it anywhere between 8 and 10,000 feet a minute. It's super loud, and it's kind of crazy. You need your hearing protection, you need glasses on because it throws some chips. But what it's doing is basically kind of melting its way through the stainless, and the teeth are there just to kind of remove the molten metal. I'll show it to you working, and it's good for sheet metal, for any thin stuff. You cut super hard material. You cut right through a damn file, you know. I mean, it's just, it'll cut through anything hard, you know. You can cut through a hardened file like it's butter. But I'll show you a couple samples of stainless getting cut on there. And you know, after years of putting stainless systems in, this is the most efficient and best way to do it. You know, regular bandsaw blades, even with coolant or something like that, you just wear them out too fast. This is fast and easy. And then once it comes off of here, I will show you the next tool that's critical, that I think, building stainless steel exhaust. And we'll head over there now. Okay, you've probably seen me use this machine before. This is an old Oliver double disc sander. 2 30-inch sanding discs on those. And this thing gets spinning, and this will remove material off of anything super fast. And it's great for truing up an angle, or just taking a whisker off of something if you need to on a stainless. And again, I'll show you this working on a piece of stainless pretty soon. And we'll just get building this header and take it from there. But I'll show you a few more things before we get going. Just so you know the things you might need, or things that'll help you along the way. Obviously you don't need something this big. You could use a 12-inch sander or something like that, but it's just easier than a grinder or a handheld thing. You can put your piece up there and really fine-tune it so you get nice, almost watertight joints before you start welding them. It just makes the stainless welding much easier if everything is fitting perfectly with no gap. So, just something to make your life a little easier when you're doing stainless work. Okay guys, I'm just going to throw a piece of stainless through the saw here so you can see how nice it cuts. It's going to get kind of loud and a little bit crazy here in a minute, and I just got a sample piece of stainless there, and it's got a weld on it. We'll cut right through that too, and we'll cut right through this a long way, and I'll just show you how it operates. Okay, it's going to get a little crazy here, so hang in there. Okay, I think you were able to see how nice the bandsaw cuts the material. Now I'm going to show you a little bit on this sander. If we got a piece here and it's got a burr on it, or we want to change the angle or something, I'll show you how this sander trims it up nice. And it takes a little bit to keep going, but once it gets up to speed, you can go at it. That's great for deburring, or if we want to adjust that angle, okay guys, those are two of my must-have tools for doing stainless work. The big disc sander and that bandsaw with a friction saw blade on it. When we're putting this stuff together, we're going to TIG everything together. And I like to use either a 40 thousandths or a 1/16th tungsten, and it's just we can put the amperage down low, and it really gives us a nice joint. And like I say, we make our joints perfect before we start to weld them. And I do add filler material to them. I don't just fuse them together. I like to add filler material to all the joints. And one thing, you know, when you're welding stainless, if you don't back gas it with something, you know, fill that whole tube up with argon or something, you get the black crunchies on the inside, and it gets kind of a pain to back gas headers, and it's really not cost effective to do that. It just it takes forever. So when you're welding your stainless together, this is a product that I use. This is called, I don't know if the camera's in focus or not. This is called Solar Flux, and it's a powder, and you mix this with some methanol or some alcohol, and you make a paste out of it. And then before you do your joints, you wipe it on the inside, and the end here, and then you put your joint together, and this will make a perfect backup for your weld. It'll prevent any kind of oxidation. It'll prevent any kind of, you know, the atmosphere won't get to the inside of the tube there. I think it's just as good as completely purging the tube and stuff, and it works great. And you can get this just about anywhere. You can find it online anywhere. It's not real expensive. And this can, this is a 1 pound can. This will do, you know, many systems. You know, you don't use a whole lot. You just you kind of wipe it on the inside and go, and you'd be amazed at how nice the inside of your stainless welds come out with that stuff. And you can use it on other things. You know, it could be regular steel, or, you know, any kind of stuff. If you're worried about the back side of anything, just put a little bit of Solar Flux in there. You'll be surprised at the results. It's really amazing stuff. So let me pull that header off. We got some welding to do on that first pipe we did. When you get one run in for one cylinder, when you get that whole run into the collector, it's best to weld it completely. Get all your joints welded up nice. If you're going to grind them out now, because a lot of times you put that second tube in there and you can't get at your first one. So don't tack everything up and then think you're going to go back later and weld it, because you'll just you'll paint yourself in a corner there. You know, you won't be able to get at all your welds. So we're going to take that off. We're going to finish weld that first one, and we're going to start working on the second one, and we'll do some cutting and welding, and we just go one at a time and get the second one in, get the third one in, and all along we're keeping mindful of the length of these tubes. The third and the fourth one are going to get pretty creative because they're going to get a little we use a lot of bends in there because we want to make it the same length. So you'll see how it comes along as I go, and I'll show you what's happening along the way. But for right now I got some welding to do, and I'll be back with you in just a little bit. Okay, here's that first tube all welded up, and you could kind of get as fancy as you want on these. Anytime you're putting headers together or exhaust and you put a bend to a straight piece of pipe, a straight piece of tubing there, a lot of times the diameters will be just a little bit off. So you could spend your time filling and grinding and buffing and polishing. Just depends what kind of look you want on your headers when you're done. We're not going for too crazy a look here. We're just building a driver here, so we'll tune these up a little bit. The welds are 100%, and you can see I've got an old milling machine vise on the bench, and they're super handy for positioning the tubing any which way you need to weld it. So there's our flange weld there. The tube goes into the flange, and we're not going to dress that or do anything with that, but you can see we got the heat right there, and we've got everything going good. I'm using 35 thousandths wire to weld everything with, and you can weld these with a MIG welder too, and some 23 thousandths wire if you want, but I like to TIG everything together. I think it comes out nicer. You can control the puddle a little better. But that's what it looks like right now, and like I say, just like welding it, if you're going to do any stainless steel finishing, do it now before you put the next tube in. Get that first tube perfect just the way you want it, and then move on to the second one. And I had one started for the second, but I changed my mind on how I'm going to run it. So what I'm going to do now is put this back on the engine, and we'll get started on our second tube. And when you get over here to the collector, you know, if you put all 4 tubes in here, you're going to have a big space in the middle. So you've got to cut a piece of stainless steel and weld it in like a diamond shape in there. Yeah, just don't let that get away from you, because if you put all the tubes in, it's kind of hard to weld it in there. So as you get your first 2 tubes in there, start figuring on welding your diamond in there to block off everything, and make sure you weld completely around here. So that's where we're at, and I'll show you how that second one comes along. Okay, we're working on that second tube, and we've got to make a little offset here. We got to come around the other pipe, and we're going to mix up some solar flux, and just want to show you it's just a powder, and we're only going to mix up a little bit at a time so it doesn't dry out on us. And you can use alcohol. They recommend methanol, but I don't have any right now, so we're just going to throw a little alcohol in there. And we'll get that mixed up. You just got to form a thick paste with it. And once you get that mixed up, you gotta let it sit a few minutes for the solar flux and the alcohol to make a chemical reaction. So we're gonna let this sit for a few minutes. We'll come back, we'll slather it on there, and we'll tack that piece up and continue on with tube number 2. Okay, it's been a few minutes, and we're gonna tack our first one together here. And we've got some marks there where we're gonna weld it. And we've got the solar flux, and you can see it's just a thick paste. And we're just gonna kind of wipe along the inside there. And get a little bit on the ends there where they're going to mate. And we do that on both pieces. Okay, we'll get those tacked up. Okay, there's a tack, and we've got two more spaced equally. Now we're just going to go over to the vehicle, and we've got a straight piece that goes on that, and it's going to drop down under the first tube, and we'll continue from there. So basically it's just a whole bunch of running back and forth from the vehicle to the bench and cutting pieces and tacking and welding, and I'll keep you up to date and show you how it goes. Okay, here we are over at the engine again. I've got the second tube in there. Just a lot of steps, a lot of cutting, sanding, and welding. Still got to attach it up here. I don't have that in yet. We just finished making it. And I think you can get an idea how it's going to look. So I've got the two of them into the right side of the collector, and I'll bring the other two cylinders into the left side of the collector. And it gets kind of busy down there, but just take a little bit at a time. So this one has to be welded, because you can see it goes underneath the other one, so all those welds have to be finished first. So I get this whole thing welded up, and the final thing I'll do is attach it up here to the flange. I want to be able to weld it, and then I'll stick it in the collector, line it up with the flange, and get everything welded in. So that's pretty much the process of making headers. It's just a whole bunch of figuring things out and finding an efficient way to cut everything. And like I say, that friction blade is probably the best way. But I'll show you what it looks like when I get the full side done, and then we'll jump on to the other side. But if you like this kind of video, and you like what you're seeing here, hit the like button, subscribe, and let me know if there's anything else you'd like to see. We're going to get back on the CJ3B body build soon, but I've got to get a little further along on this FJ project, and I've been working on the CJ5 snowblower Jeep. I've got that rolling on wheels, got everything painted, got some wheels mounted on that. I'll be bringing that out soon. So there's other projects happening, and I'll show you those as they come along. But appreciate you watching, and like I say, anything you want to see, just give me a shout and let me know, and I'll try and get it out there for you. But I hope you guys picked up some tips if you feel like making some headers, or even if you got any stainless steel tips there. I hope this video is working out for everybody that's watching, and we'll catch you next time.